Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm glad to share some knowledge from another field, the field of social research, and I think we can come to very similar conclusions, but from a totally different perspective, and I also hope to contribute with some solutions. I would like to start with an analogy. My grandfather, he was a horticulturalist, so he had his own nursery. And I also like growing plants and trees. And in the seed, all information is already available. You just have to provide the right circumstances, provide water, provide sun, and take care of that. And we are, as a human species, able to do that. And I think we have all means available to let humanity flourish. And the SDGs are the best plan the world has ever had for doing so. But what has been missing until now is connecting the SDGs more deeply to people's talents, to people's passions, to people's values. And the economy is about values. And that's what I will focus on in my short contribution. And I'm very glad with this initiative because it's much needed. And it's also becoming springtime, a time in which new developments happen and can flourish. So I get back to the first slide of my presentation. We conducted a global study amongst more than 60,000 people, looking at their values, their lifestyles, cultures, and also at the SDGs. And actually we did this study already 4 times. In this study, I did a secondary analysis and looking at the 5% of top earners. And wealth correlates, of course, with income, although it's not perfect. But this is a rough estimation. It's an exploratory analysis. And I looked at those people who are top earners, and I had 3,000 of them in the study. And let's see what we can learn from their psychology, because if we want to realize the SDGs, we have to work together. And there are rich people who would be willing to help. There are rich people who would be opposing the measures. And we have to understand that dynamic, and so it's about the power dynamic that I would like to contribute. Let's start with the pyramid. And the wealth and the incomes are, of course, predominantly strong at the top. And there is also a rich bubble. That's what I see when I look into our data on cultures, on lifestyles. And here you see also the wall that there is between the rich and the rest of society. And I'm going to fill in this picture with global scale behavioral research data. So what we did is we profiled the top 5 earners versus the rest. And let's first start with the bottom 95%. What are values, icons that fit with them? They are more likely to prioritize values cards on the right-hand side in those surveys, such as helpful, sharing, and compassion. That is about economy. That is about another economy. This is about reciprocity, compassion, and values that many religious people and also non-religious people on this planet cherish. On the left-hand side, you see that the rest of the world population is more pessimistic about their situation, also about the future, than the people on the top. And with pessimism, you can offer hope either, or you can offer fear. And these people think that developments are going too fast. The changes are going too fast. There's much more to say, but this is a summary about the power dynamics. When we look at the top earners globally and look at the rich bubble, which is a psychological and values-based bubble created by the social structures and power dynamics of the last, well, centuries. And maybe this is something from all ages, but it depends on how you deal with it. And the people who are top earners are more interested, and this is a very strong correlation, in politics. And politics is about power, and about being a gatekeeper, about being in control. They are more likely to be achievement-oriented, and they want to win. They're also more eager to connect with others and more able to do so. More innovative and very interesting, they found recognition and honor more appealing. That's something we can learn from if we look at the tactics later on. They're more likely to be older males, of course, higher educated. I don't have to tell you that, but we see it in our data as well. What we did in the next phase is we tried to find allies of the Move Humanity initiative within those 5% most affluent people in the database. And I did that by dividing those affluent people in 3 groups. Each of those groups are 1.6%, together 5% of the world population estimated based on our surveys. And the main discriminator for this segmentation is whether people are pro or against smaller income differences. So on the smaller income differences, this division is about income equality, attitudes towards that. So we have on the one hand a group who is against, and I will label them later on the self-oriented rich. And on the other hand, there's a group who supports the initiatives that we are taking. However, they are maybe not aware already that this initiative exists, but in their mindset, in their values, in their views on the economy, they would support it. So this is about creating a new power dynamic. And this is based on very large-scale behavioral research. We have hundreds of variables, and I won't, because of time, go too deep into this. But this is a profiling tool that we created based on all these surveys. In summary, the self-oriented rich are even more than the average rich into achievement, into competition. These are the Darwinists, the free market capitalists. The ideology is very strong among them. They long even more than the average rich for recognition. Honor is important. They want to be applauded. You could also call it narcissism. If you look at the issues, the political issues that they are more worried about, not only compared to the social rich, but compared to the rest of the population, and that create a power dynamic that is devastating, is that they're more worried about crime and safety, about terrorism, about immigration. Well, I don't have to tell you what these topics are doing at this moment to our planet, to our social climate, because we fail as a whole in offering different perspectives. So let's look into the social rich. Those are the allies of the Move Humanity initiative, in principle. They are into an inclusive economy. And here you see all the links with the speeches of yesterday and the analysis, but from a totally different perspective, just looking bottom up at the values, lifestyles of people around the world. They worry foremost about corruption, much more than the self-oriented rich. So focusing on transparency and exposing things, in other words, shedding light on things, could be harmful to the honor and longing for recognition of the narcissist. This provides strategic insights. So if you look at the self-oriented rich compared to the social rich have trust in people on the ground, the men and women on the street. The self-oriented rich don't. The social rich care about the environment, the climate change. They see the world as an ecosystem, just like my granddad, who was a farmer, a horticulturalist, looks at the world. And I made the analogy with humanity flourishing. And then look at those two pictures. Do you recognize humanity flourishing here? In this picture? Or do you recognize humanity flourishing here? Among the rich, also a majority pleads for more income equality. They don't know that the structures are possible. 2/3 of the rich people in our survey say that there should be smaller income differences compared to 75% in the total population, so a difference of 10%. It's a strong and significant difference of 0.3 standard deviation, so it's quite strong. But still, a majority of the rich are pro. However, they're also stuck in a system that was created a long time ago and that we are unable to change. So I come to my conclusions. And these are early takeaways from an exploratory analysis from a research project that was not really built for researching this, but I did it anyway. So the majority of the world population yearns for more income equality. 75% do so. That's an enormous power for potential and bottom-up grassroots initiatives. There is a privileged and entitled mindset of the rich that is counterproductive in funding and realizing the SDGs on many levels. However, this wonderful initiative, I would say, should focus first on mobilizing the social rich. And think of the Giving Pledge, a few years ago, initiated by Bill and Melinda Gates and Warren Buffett, who plead to donate much more than 1% of their wealth to these causes. And now think of this initiative, which is about 1%. So, activating the social rich should, in my opinion, be the first priority. And this should be done by asking the billionaires, and also millionaires, if you would ask me, to show their true colors. Are they belonging to the category of social-oriented rich? Do they want humanity to flourish? Or do they want to stand in that way, not recognize that we as humanity are together, and if somebody is suffering, you are suffering, and in essence, reject people, and based on fear, formulate policies? Are they self-oriented rich? Let them show their true colors. So persuade the self-oriented rich in the second phase of the campaign to publicly join or not. And continuously, of course, and that was what I was invited to give a TEDx talk on in Johannesburg in November at the centennial of Nelson Mandela. I gave a TEDx talk on activating millennials for the global goals by linking to their passions. Because that is what has been missing. Economy is not anymore connected to values, deeper values, and the wisdom of ages that is needed. We have to connect to our ancestors in order to provide a better future for the children of our children, of our children, of our children. And for that, we have to continuously engage millennials to influence the billionaires to show their true colors. It is always impossible until it's done. Quote Nelson Mandela. Thank you.